Any student can get involved in decision-making at the union through a variety of ways. These include voting, running for roles, submitting referenda ideas, writing a paper for union council, working for the SU, campaigning, and volunteering. If you want to get involved at the SU, in your first year, you could vote in an election or referendum, you could attend an all-members meeting, or you could stand to be a student rep. Then, in your second year, you could become a member of union council. You could submit a referenda idea to be voted on. You could campaign for that referenda. And then you could run as a part-time officer. And in your third and final year at university, you could run as a full-time officer.
Voting is a fundamental process of any democratic system and is important to ensure that citizens, in this case students, have their say in who represents them and their ideas. The union holds several elections every year. Sussex students can get involved in elections through voting or running as a candidate and being elected into a role as a full-time officer, part-time officer, student rep, committee member, or councillor. Elected positions in the union. Full-time officers are paid to lead the union, driving change in line with their manifestos and ensuring that the union is meeting the needs and demands of the student body. Part-time liberation officers and representatives ensure that the voices of underrepresented groups such as student parents and liberation groups such as BAME students are heard and their needs considered when making decisions that affect them. Students in societies, sports clubs, or student media can also run to be society sport or media reps every year. These three subcommittees of Union Council represent students in extracurricular activities and work with the Sports Societies and Events Officer to ensure that student groups are properly resourced, supported, and know what's going on in the Students' Union. These reps also help to plan large-scale union events, for example Varsity, Rag Week, and the Student Awards. We also recently established a sustainability committee made up of students from across the union who are elected on manifestos to increase sustainability at the university and hold both the union and university to account on their climate justice goals.
Student reps. Student reps are elected to represent the students on their course. They understand how students are experiencing their education and work to make sure that students are part of the decisions that affect them academically. They collect feedback from students and present this to the university through formal committees or being involved in campaigns. Union Council. Union Council is one of the highest decision-making bodies at the union, with over 50 student members. It makes sure that union staff and elected officers are doing what students want them to. It also oversees the implementation of campaigns, makes policy for the SU to run by, and can change the union's rules as well. Any student can bring a paper to Union Council for councillors to discuss and vote on. This potentially puts a new policy out to referendum where all students vote on it, or it could decide on a position or stance the union should take on a particular issue. NUS conferences. NUS conference delegates represent Sussex at a national level at NUS's National Conference and Liberation Conference, influencing national policy, campaigns, and representation. University committees. Some students also become members of high-level decision-making bodies at the university, where they can influence decisions and raise concerns on behalf of students. Referenda. Students can also vote on referenda, which when passed become policy for 3 years and the union is mandated to implement them. Referenda outcomes can have a profound impact on the union, such as becoming plastic-free, boycotting Coca-Cola, supporting rent strikes, yay, taking a stance on something like Brexit, or lobbying the university to reinstate first-generation scholar bursaries. Students will campaign for or against the referendum question, and it will go to a cross-campus vote. If it reaches quoracy, normally meaning it has to get a minimum of 450 votes cast to count, it will become union policy for 3 years, and the person who proposed it will be invited to work with union staff and officers to implement their idea. Members of societies and campaign groups also have important feed-in, and work closely with SU staff and elected officers who can influence change within the SU and help students to lobby the university on wider issues. All members meetings. We also have big all-members meetings where all students, as members of the SU, are invited to discuss issues, debate, and make policy to feed into the work of the Students' Union. The results of this can have a large effect on the Union, what its priorities are, and the direction it's going in.
The SU exists to represent student interests both within the university and wider community and campaigns on relevant local, national and international issues. We have campaigning policies voted for by students which become a focus for the SU for 3 years. We support students to campaign on issues that affect them through providing advice, resources and access to funding. Campaigning is about community organising, mobilising people and building power in order to achieve change. Campaigns often organise collective actions and events in order to highlight and challenge an issue in society. A campaign is not just about raising awareness, it's about making a tangible change to policy, law, practice or behaviour. Sussex is your community, so you're in the best position to notice what needs to change. Students have the power and ability to make a difference, whether that's on campus, locally or nationally, from issues of academia to environment to social justice. Joining or starting a campaign is also a great way to meet new people as well as to learn and strengthen a wide range of skills. Students at Sussex have run successful campaigns on a range of big and small issues in the past, from fossil fuel investment to the bus service for students across campaigns.
Democracy timeline. In September, there are the autumn elections for student reps, union councillors, representatives, and the postgrad part-time officers.
Student reps present your views to staff at the union and university, ensuring that your voice is heard in making decisions that will impact you. Representatives and PG officers represent particular groups of students, ensuring that their specific issues are taken into consideration. These groups are PGT students, PGR students, mature students, part-time students, student parents, and first-generation scholars.
In October, reps can put themselves forward for university and school committees.
By sitting on university and school committees, reps bring a student perspective to meetings and help ensure that decisions are made in students' best interest. This is an opportunity for student reps to see how decisions are made, to have their say and push for change at a university and school level. Examples of these meetings are Senate, University Council, University Education Committee, and School Boards of Study.
October is also when students are elected to sit on Union Council.
Being a member of Union Council is a key way for students to influence the work that the Union does. Council is a safe space for students to review Union policy, hear about the work the officers have been doing, and bring their ideas for how the Union could improve. It's the highest decision-making body in the Union, except for campus-wide referenda.
Spring is when the full-time and part-time officer team and 3 student trustees are elected.
The spring election is your chance to decide who will represent you to the university and what the priorities of the Union will be for the next year. These include International Students Officer, Education and Employability Officer, Wellbeing Officer, Sports Societies and Events Officer, Diversity Access and Participation Officer, Student Living and Sustainability Officer, and part-time roles such as BAME Students Officer, Disabled Students Officer, LGBTQ+ Students Officer, Trans and Non-Binary Students Officer, and Women Students Officer.
Sometime in the spring term, we also send delegates to the NUS conferences.
NUS conferences are an opportunity to meet with other students from across the country and decide next year's NUS officers and policies. This will decide what direction the NUS will take and who will represent students nationwide. We also have societies, sports, media, and sustainability committees. Students on these committees make decisions on the Union's work in these areas, for example, dealing with issues that arise, deciding funding, or sharing ideas for how the Union's work could be improved. For more information, head to www.sussexstudent.com.